So the first thing we want to do is open Adobe Animate, and I'm going to click on Full HD to start a new document. All right, give it some minutes or seconds to open. I like doing Control minus just to see the actual frame and the work area. So the first thing I'm going to do is to rename my existing layer here. I'm going to double click and I'll call this head. And I'm going to use my oval tool to draw a simple oval shape like that. All right, I'm going to select the shape using the selection tool. Shortcut is V. I just want to change the color a bit to something like this. I don't need the outline, so I'll put my cursor on the outline and double click it, and I'll delete that. And I'm going to create the eye, and I'm going to use a simple oval shape again, but this time around I'll create a new layer. All right, I'm going to call this eye white. So I'm going to create a new shape, something like that. Maybe I want to constrain it by holding down shift to make it a perfect square. I'm going to double click on that and I'll make the fill white. Okay, so I will select that, bring it somewhere here. So right now I have two layers. The first layer is the eye white and the second one is the head. Now, the next thing I'm going to create is something that represents the eyeballs. So once again, I'll create a new layer. I'll call this eyeball. So I'm going to take this layer by left clicking, hold and drag it up so that the new layer becomes the eyeball and it's going to be on top of the eye white. I like locking the layers I'm not working on. I'm going to lock the eye white as well as the head. Now I'm on the eyeball layer. I'm going to use my circle. I'll create a small circle to represent the eyeball. I'll select both of them. I can increase the size of the outline. And for the fill, I want to use something like this. All right, or maybe something bluish. Something like that is fine. So that represents the eyeball and I'll drag it to the center. All right. So let's assume that this is my wonderful looking character. I want to convert all of these layers into symbols. So I'm going to right click on this layer here and I will say convert layers to symbol. I'm just going to click on the graphic and I'll give this a name. I'll call this eyeball and I will select the eye white and I'll right click. Actually, you can come to modify. That is another way of converting to symbol. Make sure it's selected and say convert to symbol. And you can see the shortcut is F8. So I'll call this eye white. Okay, so we have two symbols. Now the last one is the head. I'm also going to convert it to a symbol. I'll say convert layers to symbol and I'll call this the head. So you'll notice now that we have symbols for all of these assets. So I'm going to select the eye white. I will make a copy of that by duplicating it. I'll right click and I will say duplicate layers. So that is my eye white. I will take this eye white over the eyeball. Now this is going to serve as a mask. That way anything I create underneath is going to be hidden. So I'll call this eye white mask. Now I'm going to create an upper eyelid which will enable this character to blink. Right click and I will call this blink. Now for the blink, I'm going to create a simple shape that will represent a blink. And this shape, I'm going to make it this. Maybe something a bit darker might work. So I can make it a bit darker. Now that is going to be the blink. And I'll place it right under the eye white mask. See the positioning of all of my layers. First, I have the eye white, which is a symbol. Eye blink, I'm going to also make it a symbol. So I will say right click and convert to symbol. I'll call this blink. So that now is a symbol. Then I also have the eye white, which should also be a symbol. Convert everything to symbols. It's very important to get this sorted. So I'm going to select the eye blink and I'll right click and I will select mask. Now, automatically, you can see that the blink shape that we created is now hidden. This is quite important because with this, you can now create a blink. So how does this work? So the rig is ready to be animated. However, I need to animate the blink. So what I'm going to do is to briefly uncheck the lock sign so I can have access to this shape. And I will add a couple of keyframes, let's say 25 or let's say 50 frames. Right click, insert frame. Now I have 50 frames to work with. So let's say I want the character to blink at frame 6. So I can say insert keyframe. I'll right click and I'll say insert keyframe, and I'll right click and I will once again add classic twin. Now in between, I want the character to blink. All right, let's see what the timing looks like. I've added a classic twin here. So I'm going to come here, I'll right click and I'll say insert keyframe. And I'll add a classic twin between those two keyframes. I will go back in time and I can bring this down, this shape down a little bit to create that motion. So if I play, you have that quick movement. Now, how does this translate to a blink? If I check the lock sign again and I play, you have that blink very fast. All right, so that is one way you can actually create a blink. If you want that blink to last longer, you can stretch this a little bit, hold down Alt and make a copy of that keyframe. All right, so you see how easily it is to create a blink using symbols. Now, this is just one way of doing it, but hopefully you find this interesting. I would like to see how you're able to interpret this. All right, so that is how you can easily create a blink for your character using symbols. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you and see you soon. Bye for now.